What is good, everyone? It is your guy, Don James, and welcome back to the 5 Years Later series. If you're new to the channel, I'm doing a series where I break down every billion-dollar film from 2019 to get a sense of how well it's aged. So if you're interested in that, please subscribe. Today we'll be talking about 2019 Joker.
So much. I just want to...
Oh, crap. Maybe I shouldn't sound so upbeat about this movie. So yeah, it's been legit over a month since I've added back to this series. My apologies about that. But this has definitely been one of the hardest movies to do an analysis of because this is nothing like the other billion-dollar movies. Like, for one, this is not like a franchise film. And for two, the release of Joker... The release of Joker 2 was such a dramatic dumpster fire compared to the reception of the first movie, so it's harder to know how much the sequel affected people's view of the first movie. But I'll do my best. Well, anyway, here's the format, and let's get started. So for starters, Joker definitely falls into an interesting category of comic book movies around this time period. Not only was it rated R, but it wasn't like a comedy like Deadpool, nor was it part of a franchise like Logan. Yet it surprisingly managed to outgross the Deadpool movies and Logan. So I guess that explains why the two teamed up this year to take down Joker. But they didn't really have to, because Joker took down himself. So anyways, what was the beginning developmental stages of this movie? Well, it begins with Todd Phillips, a guy who was mostly known for directing the famous comedy film The Hangover, and the infamous comedy films The Hangover sequels. Anyways, in 2016, Phillips released a black comedy film called War Dogs. War Dogs was a little bit controversial, and after that, Todd Phillips expressed his frustration with directing comedies amidst a politically divisive era. Due to this, he started to consider veering away from crass comedies and try to explore other genres where he could maybe try to sprinkle in some level of irreverence. So he thought, why not comic book movies? I don't know, perhaps he got the idea from Deadpool, but anyways, he proposed the idea to DC that they could compete with Marvel by trying to release some more low-budget standalone movies. They liked the sound of that idea and agreed to it. And ultimately, Phillips decided to choose the Joker because he did not see a definitive portrayal of his origin story, so he saw that as an avenue for more creative freedom. So, when it comes to casting, Joaquin Phoenix had expressed interest in acting out a low-budget character study movie based on a comic book character. Here's a little excerpt from what he said in an interview on this. 3 or 4 years ago, I called my agent and said, why don't they want to take one of these characters and just make a lower budget film about it? A movie about a character study. And why not take one of the villains? And I thought, you can't do the Joker because, you know, it's just you can't do that character. It's just been done. Well, clearly he turned out to be wrong. And then he turned out to be right again. Yeah, if you've seen this movie or heard like anything about it, you'll get that joke. When it came to the production of the film, DC hired Martin Scorsese to co-produce the film alongside Todd Phillips, which made sense as Joker 2019 was pretty well known for taking clear inspiration from King of Comedy and Taxi Driver, both movies made by Scorsese. In fact, speaking of Scorsese, Warner Bros. Actually had an interest in initially casting Leonardo DiCaprio because he often had collaboration and success with Martin Scorsese. However, Phillips insisted on Joaquin Phoenix, even stating that the script was written with him in mind. And speaking of the script, that took about a year to finish due to conflicts with Warner Bros. About the content of the Joker's character, and simply just trying to get all of the writers' room on board with the direction they were going. So majority of the filming took place in New York City, some of it also took place in New Jersey, but yeah, it's no surprise it took place in New York. So anyways, Joker had its world premiere at the 76th Venice International Film Festival on August 31st, 2019, and then released theatrically on October 4th. Wait, what the heck? I'm not done yet. We still gotta talk about the controversy. So yeah, one of the things that helped boost Joker to a billion-dollar film was that the months leading up to this movie were wrapped in controversy. Many publicized outlets were concerned that Joker would come off as some kind of inspiration to disenfranchised, angry, white, I'm just going to use the internet term here, involuntary celibates, better known as incels. So essentially, some people viewed the dark nature of the story and the Joker's transformation from being a mistreated, mentally ill man to a killer clown who gains his confidence by committing violence and inspiring others around him to do the same. Yeah, some people thought that this would appeal to bitter men who feel they are losing power in society and may view Joker as some kind of role model and seek to emulate his actions against society. I'm not really going to tell you which way you should lean on it, but given how much this movie ended up making, the general audience reception, and the fact that there were not many highly publicized incidents of violence related to the movie, I think that indicated what side the general public took. But given the low-budget nature of this movie, its billion-dollar success was unprecedented. At the time of its release, not only was it the highest-grossing R-rated movie of all time, it was the first R-rated movie to crack the billion-dollar mark, and its net profit was incredible. Though it was the 6th highest-grossing movie of 2019, it was likely the 4th most profitable film of 2019, earning an estimated $437 million in profit. And that was likely the sole reason why Warner Bros. Wanted a sequel to this movie. Because if that's not the Warner Brothers way, right after having a historic box office success, they needed to counterbalance it with a historic box office bomb.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
So in light of all the controversy, how was the overall reception for the movie? Very good, yet kinda weird. Anyways, when looking at the 3 main aggregate websites, I simply just asked AI to give me a picture of Bob the Tomato with clown makeup, and I guess this is the best that they could do. Alright, with the removal of that abomination, Rotten Tomatoes critics gave the movie a 68%, while audience members were significantly higher with a 90%. IMDb followed the audience praise with an 8.4 rating, and when divvying up the user reviews, the 10 stars got a 52.4% of the total reviews, the 6 stars got about 3.9%, and the 1 stars got about 5.8%. So clearly pretty overwhelmingly positive from IMDb user reviews. And Metacritic, their critic scores were more similar to Rotten Tomatoes with a 59 score, and the audience score was more similar to the audience on Rotten Tomatoes with a 8.9 out of 10. So the interesting thing is that clearly the audience liked this movie way more than critics did, and the critic score reflected more of the controversy that engulfed the film before its release. But despite that controversy, the Academy Awards nominated Joker for Best Picture, and critics tend to go pretty hand in hand ideologically with the Academy Awards. So if the critics were divided based off of controversy, then I would not think that the Academy, especially given their notorious aversion to comic book movies, would choose this one of all films to get a nomination. But with that aside, I also took some YouTube samples of reviews from 2019. I took quite a, I got about 6 or 7 mainstream YouTubers. Most of them are reviewers, but I'll just run through them pretty quickly. So, Sean Chandler gave the film an A, Chris Stuckman gave the movie an A-, Jeremy John said it was awesome-tacular, John Campia said it was magnificent, Beyond the Trailer said it was excellent, IGN gave the movie a 10 out of 10, a channel called Joe Blow Originals gave it a 9 out of 10, and Penguin Z0 gave it a 95 out of 100 on the moist meter. So yeah, I took quite a bit of YouTubers, but as you can clearly tell, it's overwhelmingly positive, like extreme high praise, not just a good movie, but an excellent movie. So really the only outliers were the initial critics. The Academy, the audience, and YouTube all demonstrated extreme high praise for this movie as a true work of art within the comic book genre. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot about my old nemesis, CinemaScore, the website where you could release a movie about literal paint drying and they'll somehow find a way to walk out the theater and grade it an A. Though surprisingly, they were a little bit lower than they usually are for comic book movies, giving Joker a B+, but still demonstrating overall positivity. So when it comes to Joker, I think it was just really a very unique film for people to digest. In an era where most superhero movies were family friendly and just mainly known as popcorn entertainment, Joker 2019 really stood out to people. Joker wasn't a comedy at all, and it wasn't a franchise film either. It was a low-budget, standalone, cautionary tale. And thus, it gave people a lot to talk about, a lot to think about, and ultimately elevated Joker to extremely high status. Now, even with the controversy aside, some people weren't huge fans of the film because they just simply found it to be way too pretentious, or they just thought it was too derivative of Scorsese's work. But clearly, that was more the minority opinion. Now, when it comes to 2024, I feel like I probably chose a pretty good timing to release this analysis, because had I released this much earlier in the year, then I don't think there could have been as full of an analysis. What I was quite curious with in this section was how much did Joker Folie Dieu, did this year's crappy Joker sequel impact people's perception of Joker 1? And this is a really interesting one because I feel like Joker 2 did very specific things that could have harmed how people viewed the legacy of Joker 1. Given that ultimately Joker 2 took the direction of focusing significantly more on Arthur Fleck and ultimately concluding with him declaring that he's not really the Joker, as well as getting killed at the end of the film, it became a despised movie by the fans, and a film that many would argue essentially tries to undo and backtrack everything that the first film established. And when you have a sequel that seems to actively hate and try to undo the first film, that brings great risk to cheapen the impact of the first film and how the public views it. So, how did that impact Joker 1? Well, ultimately, I just first started out by trying to look a little bit into the 2024 aggregate reviews for Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, and I don't really use Metacritic because they don't tend to have enough reviews in 2024. So I actually didn't use every single 2024 review on either website because holy crap, there are like over 300 reviews in 2024. I suppose that's probably no surprise because we're almost near the end of the year. So instead what I did was, for Rotten Tomatoes, I took a sample of the 100 most recent reviews on the website. And then for IMDb user reviews, I actually did something a little different. I took the first 100 reviews from the beginning of the year, and then I tried to compare them with every single review after the release of Joker 2. There were only a total of 44 reviews after Joker 2's release on IMDb, which kind of surprised me, but I want to kind of look at how the score changed after Joker 2's release and if there was some kind of major drop. So on Rotten Tomatoes, the latest 100 reviews had a total average score of a 3.99 out of 5 stars. Now, majority of the reviews in this sample were done after the release of Joker 2, and compared to the audience score in 2019, they gave it a 90%. So if you were to convert the star score to a percentage, that's around an 80%. That is still a solid score, definitely, but it is a bit of a notable drop. And then for IMDb, the first 100 scores at the beginning of the year totaled to an 8.32 out of 10. After the release of Joker 2, the average score for the 44 reviews was a 7.93 out of 10 stars. Now, I don't really know how to calculate the percentage decline off the top of my head, so give me a sec to consult some internet calculator. That is about a 4.7 decrease in score, and that's not really that bad of a decline, to be honest, and both scores are still excellent. So from this, I think it could still be concluded that a large portion of the audience definitely still holds Joker in high regard, even if they hated the sequel. They more so held it against Todd Phillips and Warner Bros. Greed for greenlighting a completely unnecessary sequel than holding it against Joker 1. Also, for a quick bonus, I took all of the critics that reviewed Joker on Rotten Tomatoes in 2024, which was a grand total of 5. But of those 5, 3 out of the 5 of them gave it a fresh score, so hey, that's still the majority of them. I don't know if that really adds a whole lot, but, you know, there you go. And when it comes to YouTube samples, I mean, I really don't have much to say, because, like I said, this isn't like the other movies that made $1 billion. Like, most of those were part of larger franchises to which they were releasing constant movies in which many YouTubers would rank them as they came out. But Joker was a standalone film, so there's not a ton of YouTubers that are really talking in depth about Joker 2019 anymore, or putting it in any kind of ranking. They're more so just like ranking the DCEU or something. When moving on to websites that rank DC stuff in 2024, I really only found like 2 websites that had like rankings of every DC movie. Most websites are just ranking the DCEU, or they're only ranking like top 10s and stuff, so I'm not really going to include that. So I'll just show you like these 2 sample companies to give maybe a little bit added data to how Joker 1 is perceived. So I just picked 2 websites, being Screen Crush and Popverse. So when it came to Screen Crush, they ranked Joker 30th out of 44 movies. And they were definitely not positive on it, basically calling it just a dour Scorsese knockoff. And the film that they had right above it was Joker 2. So probably not the most representative of how the general public views Joker 1, but maybe a little bit more indicative of how critics are more likely to view Joker 1. And then the Popverse, they ranked Joker 1 16th out of 40 movies. It seemed like they leaned more positive in their analysis of the film, but similar to Screen Crush, they viewed the movie as kind of a Scorsese knockoff. But also, when you go a little bit further into the rankings of this website, they have The Suicide Squad as the best DC movie. They have Batman 1966 and Birds of Prey above The Dark Knight.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Hey, when it comes to movie opinions, to each their own, but I think it's pretty safe to say that this is an extreme outlier ranking, not necessarily the most helpful for a general analysis. So how would I generally sum up the 2024 analysis of Joker 1? I would say it's really just slightly declined as a result of Joker 2, but overall it seems like most people tend to retain a high level of praise for this movie. Maybe when some of the hype wore off, some people did view it as more derivative of Scorsese movies, but I definitely think in general, Joker 1 is still considered a fantastic film. When it comes to the legacy of this movie, I'm still kind of curious to see just how much Joker 1 will be remembered after the complete annihilation of his character in Joker 2. As of now, it seems as though fans of the first film have just settled on pretending Joker 2 doesn't exist, but I wonder how much that will still retain in the coming years. But when it comes to society as a whole, I think Joker 1 still retained a status as one of the most unique comic book movies ever released. there have been very few comic book films that ignited the level of discourse that Joker 1 did. The societal discussions that it raised relating to mental health, relating to disenfranchised men, all of it was stuff that just people were not used to talking about and debating about in relation to comic book movies, especially in this era. In general, comic book movies of the past were just known to be extremely corny and campy. Nowadays, comic book movies do take themselves more seriously, but they still generally aim to be harmless fun. Joker was not one of those movies. It was a movie that many found unsettling and disturbing, yet fantastic, while others found it unsettling, disturbing, and dangerous. It was a movie that some people found to be deep and profound and bold, while others found it to be pretentious and shallow. So in general, I do think that Joker 1's impact on society was just simply being one of the most unique and interesting comic book movies to ever enter the public discourse. And when it comes to Warner Bros., I mean, Joker 1 probably just fully put their greed on full display with 5 years to look at it. It seemed pretty well established that Joker 1 was intended to be a standalone film and a simple cautionary tale that needed no sequel. However, after seeing the success of the film, Warner Bros. Just had to beg Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix to return so that they could try to make more money on a sequel. And ultimately, it was very clear that Todd Phillips was not interested in following up a sequel in any way that the fans wanted, and clearly that absolutely destroyed the movie and literally reversed much of the financial success that they experienced with Joker 1. Ultimately, I think that Joker 1 was simply an unprecedented success that really spiked major interest in a completely unique, gritty, and grounded character study. It was also a movie that managed to challenge The Dark Knight when it came to bringing a Joker to the screen that some thought could rival Heath Ledger, which beforehand seemed unthinkable. But Phoenix received widespread acclaim for his performance, even winning Best Actor at the Oscars. So yeah, even 5 years later, I would say Joker 1 still seems to be hailed as a fantastic film and has aged quite well. Sure, the sequel managed to screw that up a little bit, but I think that the intense backlash from the fans just kind of indicated some degree of how much they still cherish the first movie and how disappointing it was to see a sequel that, in their eyes, actively sought to undo it. But nonetheless, Joker 1 remains one of the most interesting billion-dollar films and comic book films of all time. But that is the video. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts on Joker down below. Next video up is Frozen 2, and given the long break that I took, I'm probably going to be releasing that video sooner than usual so that I could try to get out all the analysis before the end of the year. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.